Hi, everybody. For today's episode of A Guy with a Scarf Even in Summer, which is a longer title, I'm happy to have with me a marketing expert that has a specific, if you want, focus on athletes, Thomas van Schaik. We met many years ago at a Sports Pro brand conference or marketing brand conference at the Oval in London. And Thomas, hi, how are you?
Pleasure to meet you, Carlo. Thank you for having me.
So tell me a bit about your journey to where you are now in sports marketing.
Well, I have actually never not worked in sports. So I started out in the NFL Europe. I started out in the NFL Europe. Made a transition after a couple of years to PSV Eindhoven, the
Ah,
soccer team here, the
yeah.
local defending champions. I proudly say. From PSV, I made the switch to Adidas, where I was for about 15 years
Oh, wow.
in a variety of global roles. I ended up building a department called Global Icon Building and their global brand director in charge of the campaigns surrounding the World Cup and the Olympics. And from there, I actually became the CMO of the Dutch Olympic team
Yeah.
and the Dutch Paralympic team. And from there, I started out my own consultancy, the Athlete brand that I'll tell you a little more about in a little second.
Yeah. And one thing that I always kind of identify you, even if it may be a bit, smaller focus, but I always identify with someone that knows a lot about marketing in sport for athletes or with athletes. I don't know if you recognize yourself in that. And to be honest, I don't have a lot of people that I can say that the same. So if you can go a bit deeper in what it means, what is happening today, how is it different today for athletes, and what ideas you have, what is your vision for them?
Well, I would say you're right. I am an athlete evangelist, an athlete brand evangelist. I promote a more entrepreneurial mindset amongst athletes. I believe that the future of sports is absolutely brand led, it is athlete centric, and it is data driven. And I feel we can talk a little bit
Absolutely.
more about each of these three elements. But the war for talent is over, and the talent has won. Media fragmentation, but also artificial intelligence and social media tools are empowering athletes, individual athletes, in ways that they have never had before. Athletes have always had to rely on the willingness of rights holders and traditional media outlets to actually amplify their content. And right
Yeah.
now, athletes can start a direct one-to-one relationship with their communities and their fans. I mean, if you will allow me to give you a little bit of a boring stat, which I think is absolutely fascinating, then you take the FIFA World Cup, the NHL, the NBA, the NFL, the MLB. Do we have five now? We
Yeah.
have five, right? The five biggest leagues, five biggest sports entities. And if you combine their social media following as a whole across Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, then they have a combined social media following of 460 million. 460 million.
Yeah.
That's an incredible number. And of course, you have to realize that they have been building these numbers with teams of professionals, much like you and me, to be honest. They've been building this following for over 20 years. They
Yeah.
have invested budgets, know how, clever people, have recruited the best agencies, and have implied the latest technology to get to these 460 million people. But now we take a look at just Cristiano, Messi, and Neymar Jr. And instead of a collective cumulative following of 460 million, these three guys have an audience of 1.9 billion.
Wow. Yeah.
And
So
now,
each
and
is
now
more
we
than the
think,
combined.
yeah, and now we think, what kind of a technology do they use? Which agencies do they work with? How many clever people? How many years? What is the actual investment? If you compare the social media relevance of the FA in England, the finalist of the last Euros, and you compare it to the following of Jude Bellingham, who just turned 21 during the tournament, then Jude Bellingham has over 6 or 7 times the social media following of the English FA.
Hmm.
So 24 players have more than 10 times the following of all of those federations combined. And that is incredible because this value in sports, like we just discussed, is much more brand centric,
Hmm.
it's much more data driven, and it's much more athlete centric. And what are these federations and these rights holders still doing? They are still trying to limit, they are still trying to downplay, they are still under facilitating the athletes that all the fans want to follow and know more about. Where I believe they would win tremendously by facilitating and empowering individual athletes to actually incorporate and professionalize their social media strategies. And everybody would win. The rights holders, I mean, across the world, influencers and affiliates have become very successful tools, right? I mean, there's not a company in the world that doesn't collaborate with them. And in
Yeah,
sport,
yeah.
it's super easy to see who the most influential influencers are. It's clearly the athletes.
Hmm. Absolutely. But and you think it's everything is on social media, or do you think the more develop can create their own fun experiences, or how is that evolving?
Well, clearly, the social media relevance is an indicator of their incredible value and relevance. There's no doubting it. But there's this lovely one-liner: "Don't build your brand on rented land." There's
Exactly.
definitely there's there's definitely this interest of building your own building your own first party databases. So if you look at what athletes are doing, then they often lack a professional digital infrastructure. And of course, with the rise of AI, but also with the rise of the blockchain and e-commerce sites being as accessible as they are, there is absolutely no reason why athletes shouldn't be absolute e-commerce specialists.
Mm.
In the time of AI, the challenge is not to create new products. The value is in the distribution, and that
Mhm.
it lies predominantly with the individual athlete. So the closer you are to the fan, the closer you are to their wallet. Now,
Mhm.
clearly, athletes are competing for something bigger than money, right? I believe in the Olympic dream. I believe in the power of the Olympic flame. All of that is beautiful. And not every athlete needs to become an influencer.
Mhm.
But if you want to make money, and I think that professional athletes actually have an interest in earning, hence the word professional,
Mhm.
then they should be better at building their brands and boosting their independence, their influence, their income, and their impact.
How does this fight with the rights that they have to give away when they play? Depending on the league, depending on the team, there's always a negotiation. There are frameworks of rights. So, and that's maybe what you were saying in terms of, but you were focusing more on social media. But I know that, uh, take football. If I play for a club, there are
Mhm.
certain rules from the club, from the league, maybe from the federation when I play nationally, etc. So I'm inside the framework as an athlete. Do you think this is evolving, or it's always the same contract, the same?
Well, these
So,
frameworks have been changing over time. If we look at this in an historical perspective, then before the World War, before television, sports was mainly a geographic, a local business. Local sports organizers were selling tickets, and the one that was selling the ticket was making the money.
yeah, yeah,
After the Second World War, sports became a television product. So
yeah.
we started sports changing into becoming more television centric. So in the US, you saw the NBA, you saw the NFL, you saw sports changing their rules to become a better television product. Around the 1980s, we got global satellite stations and 24-hour television, which meant that their coverage started to change. We couldn't just rely on live sports. They were also starting talk television. We started more globalized
Yeah.
content. Around the 2000s, we started this social media impact. So we started building these Facebook followings and started to develop different values. And now, when we're starting in this creator economy, Web 3.0, is it the AI time? I'm not sure how we're going to define this era, but it is absolutely crucial that we are seeing sports shift, which means, I mean, you live in Torino, I live in Utrecht.
Yeah,
Did you grow up in Torino as well?
I did. I did.
Yeah. when you grew up in Torino, you were probably a Torino fan.
Not a Juventus, a Torino fan. Exactly.
You were a Torino fan.
Oh
And
yes.
I mean, if I look back at my time in Utrecht, I can still name the starting lineup from my team back in the day when I was 12. Like you will be able to recite your heroes in the Torino team. But if we ask a child that lives next door to you of 12 who his favorite team is, he might say Real Madrid, he might say Barcelona, or he might say the LA Lakers or the Tampa Bay
Ah
Buccaneers,
yeah. Yeah.
because he can choose who he supports and he is not, or she is not limited by geographic constraints. Sports has become a global product and fandom has definitely changed. And that has had a dramatic impact on the value and interest of athletes. If we look at
Mhm.
Messi now joining Inter Miami, before Messi joined a year ago, Inter Miami had 1 million followers on Instagram. I think by now they have 23 million. I'm guessing this. I haven't double checked what the latest follower numbers are for Inter, but it has um, it has exploded because of him, and that means that the value of fans has dramatically changed.
Mhm.
Now, out of the fans that Leo Messi has in Indonesia, in India, in China, or elsewhere around the planet, it's very unlikely that they will ever visit a Leo Messi
Ah
match.
yeah. Yeah.
But there's still incredible value that they represent in actually following or expressing their support for Leo Messi, which is
Mhm.
why you see this change in more digital product, whether that is as simple as streams, whether that is as simple as merchandise, or whether
Mhm.
that is as simple in product and services that athletes develop themselves. And this is where your point is super interesting about this landscape. Of course, there's going to be conflict in sponsorships. But what I'm advocating is that athletes start developing products and services that would resonate with their community
Mhm.
instead of trying to sell products, existing products, or trying to find customers for their existing products.
Mhm. 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 No, see, I think the top one are in social are bigger than the other brands, but maybe they're not in e-commerce, they're not in terms of creating content, they're maybe not in terms. So if you imagine you need Netflix to do the next original series on a player.
Mm,
I was imagining maybe the player. I don't know. So obviously it's very complex because you need to
yeah.
be expert in every angle, and maybe partnership is a good way of doing things in the end.
I mean, if we look at storytelling and the incredible power of storytelling, then obviously that's fundamental to who we are as a species. We are a storytelling species. No story, no glory. Of course, athletes have become content creators, but the lion's share of athletes is producing content. They are more or less live streaming or live broadcasting live casting their life. That's the word I was looking for, live casting.
Yeah.
This is what I eat. I'm now in my car. I'm happy we won. I'm sad we lost. But they're not actually telling stories.
Uh,
This is where Kobe Bryant actually set the new benchmark when he hired storytellers from Disney to co-produce his Thank You Basketball film, which actually won the Oscar for Best Animated Short Movie.
huh.
So athlete
Yeah.
first
Yeah.
generated content can actually be Oscar winning material, provided they work together with the right talent.
Yeah. But there's one
And
thing that I was reflecting recently. We as, sorry, the sport industry, we were a bit asleep at the wheel, and we had to wait for Netflix as a first and others following to create original series on sport. While, to be honest, recognizing the sport as a lot of story to tell and original series was the right format. I mean, retrospectively, it was kind of an obvious idea, right? So, but yeah, someone else had to come and create a new, if you want, market almost, no?
yeah, there's this one liner that says that good brands sell stuff, but great brands sell meaning. And it takes stories to build brands, but it also takes people to tell great stories.
uh, uh,
And
yeah.
this is what the sports industry has been doing for the last 50 years. They've been selling and telling the story of these individual athletes, but they have been doing that without the athletes.
That's it.
Athlete brands have been built by chance, not by choice.
Mm,
And now athletes are starting to realize that they can actually be in charge of their own narrative. And what we find is that athletes are using their platforms to be loud about topics that they care about most, which
mhm,
is why Colin Kaepernick is voicing out against police brutality, which
mhm,
is why we've seen a variety of um, Muslim football players speak out about the situation in Gaza,
mhm.
which is why Megan Rapinoe speaks out about gender equality, which
Yeah.
is why Caitlin, call me Caitlin, is speaking out about gender identity,
Mhm,
which
mhm.
is why Marcus Rashford has been
Yes.
voicing
Yes.
his importance into healthy food for on English schools. So
Mm-mm.
what we are seeing is that athletes are using their platforms not only to increase their income, but also to increase their societal impact.
But one thing that we are 1 week from the Olympics, and we mostly, I would say, mostly talking until now about the big ones, the big athletes.
Hmm.
What about, and thinking about Olympics, the scenario is different. So, how many sports normally, I don't want to say don't exist. I mean, they don't exist mediatically. They're not at the center. They're only at the center for every 4 years. How many athletes see that moment as the defining uh, career moment for them, but maybe even revenue wise at some point? So, what happens in these more diverse and wider layers of top athletes to non-top athletes? How does it work for non-top athletes or
Yeah,
top
yeah, yeah.
athletes of non-top sports? Sorry to blah blah blah.
No, no, no. I'm happy you asked because actually, of course, this phenomenon is relevant to the biggest athletes on the world, but it is even more relevant to athletes that compete in niche sports or athletes that feel that they are under reported on, under reflected, underrepresented. Smaller athletes, the digital revolution is empowering them more than anybody else. There's this lovely essay, this lovely piece of content that's written in 2007 by a guy called Kevin Kelly. He wrote a
Yeah.
piece about 1,000 true fans. And the idea of 1,000 true fans is that you do not need 900 million fans like Cristiano Ronaldo. What you need is an audience of 1,000 true fans. Those are the people that watch your sport. Those are the people that uh, stay at home to watch you compete. These are the people that buy your T-shirt. These are the people that will buy my book, right? Uh, so the idea here is that the theory of 1,000 true fans gives athletes three challenges. The first challenge is that they should consciously decide who they would want their true fans to be.
Mhm,
What is the audience they are actually trying to captivate? Who is it that they are creating content for? Are these young boys that are age 12 that have the aspiration to do their sport?
mhm,
Are these the people from their hometown? Are these the lovers of their sport worldwide? Who are you actually creating content for? Who are your 1,000 true fans? Actually create a persona, right?
mhm.
Who are you creating content for? The second challenge is how do you actually connect with these 1,000 true fans? Where are they? Can you create a relationship with these people? Can you create a mailing list? Can you create a newsletter? Can you create content that actually resonates with them and
Mm.
allows you to make a direct connection with these 1,000 people? And the third challenge that they have is what are the products and services that these 1,000 people would love to buy from me?
Mhm.
How can I enable these 1,000 fans to spend €100 with me?
Yeah.
Once you have that in place, you can think about do I want 100, do I want 1,001 fans? Or do I want 1,000 fans to spend 200 euros with me? Are you creating a t-shirt? Are you creating a course? Are you creating a downloadable? Are you creating a token? What is it that you're actually offering your fans? Are you creating a
Mm,
fan day? All of
mhm,
these fans are spending money, and nobody is closer to the hearts, minds, and wallets of these fans than the athletes they support.
mhm, mhm. No, it's
And
a great framework.
yeah, I'm excited about this because if you're really a professional athlete, then the challenge of finding, defining, and finding your 1,000 true fans, I think, should really excite you as an athlete and as a
Mm.
business owner.
No, no, but especially not related to athletes, but when I transition from generic digital audiences, website apps, to subscriber-based OTT streaming services, where you have each one of your paying customers is a single person that is spending money with you every month. The rationale for the choices you do in building a product, the user experience, the content, the customer service, it's totally different. You build this kind of empathy, interested empathy. So you have, there is another person on the other end, and you're doing things for them. So
Yeah.
it's similar. So instead of thinking I have 1 million fans, so who cares in the end? 1,000, the responsibility is there, right?
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, I think it is super interesting. I mean, there's a couple of examples. There's a Canadian pole vaulter called Alicia Newman. She has, I think, about 20,000 fans on OnlyFans,
Yeah,
uh, who pay, I think, up to $15 every month. Um, of course, that's a model that doesn't appeal to everybody.
yeah,
But then there is a guy called Kurt Bankert. He's a quarterback in the US, or a retired quarterback. He's made an ebook that's
yeah,
called Football 101, which he sells, I think, for $50. He's selling thousands of copies of his ebook. There's Tom Daly, the
yeah,
British diver, who has this lovely, lovely company called Made with Love by Tom Daly, focused on knitting,
yeah,
patterns,
yeah,
wool,
yeah, yeah,
which now for his business, he has over 1 million followers on Instagram. So
yeah,
you see all these athletes embracing a more entrepreneurial mindset and actually developing products and services that resonate with their audience, that are all based around their authentic interests. So
yeah,
rather than being just an athlete, I'm advocating that athletes build a more holistic presence
yeah.
where they can be focusing on basically 5 elements, if you allow me. They focus on their performance, of course. They're an athlete first and foremost. It gives them the credibility, but also their personality. They shouldn't be like everybody else. They should be like themselves.
Yeah.
The third is their community, whether that is the people or the places that they care about most, whether that is the LGBTQ community, whether that is Black Lives Matter, whether that is women's power, whether that is the people of Torino, whether that is Italians. Who is your community?
Yeah.
The fourth is passion. What are you actually passionate about? This is your free out of jail card. This could be anything, ranging from coffee to mobile phones to books. This could be anything,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
fifth one is monetization. And
Yeah.
that is amplifying your partners, but also selling your own products and services.
Yeah. So it's a
And
direct to consumer aspect. So it's B2B and direct to consumer. It's the combined.
exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And
So wow.
working with, yeah. I mean, what I find really really exciting is that usually what athletes tend to do is they do not tend to tell stories. They tend to livecast their life, and they are not posting often enough.
Mm.
And thirdly, they don't have a plan.
Yeah.
Right. So
That's
every
the
athlete
third
agrees.
one.
Every
The
athlete
third one.
agrees that it's important, but very very few athletes actually have a plan. And this has to
Mm.
do with the fact that the current industry and the existing entourage of athletes basically is not equipped for this new
I know.
economy.
Mm.
And of course, they have a deal maker and an agent, but it is very, very, very rare that they would either have somebody with expertise in brand building or expertise in digital infrastructure or digital marketing as part of their team.
Or even e-commerce at the end, imagine.
Yeah, let alone e-commerce. That's
Exactly.
even further away. Yeah, and
Yeah.
that's basically what I'm training athletes to do, what I'm equipping them to do, what I'm enabling them to do, and this is basically why we've founded the Athlete brand.
All of that is super fascinating. But you mentioned a book. Tell me and show me the book, because I've wrote some self-published book, but never a published book. So I'm super envious.
Basically, when I was working at Adidas, it was my role to take the plan of the athlete, put it over the plan of the brand, and then activate in the middle. Basically, that was the long and short of it. But as I was charged to do that, I found that athletes basically didn't have a plan. So I ended up making the athlete plan first and then placing it over the Adidas plan so that we could activate in the middle.
Yeah.
And it was always surprising to me that athletes basically didn't have a brand plan. And that sort of stuck with me ever since that day. And then when the Corona crisis hit, I started writing this book. And the Corona crisis, as you know, for everybody in sports, it lasted quite long.
Yeah.
It lasted too long. So for me, it lasted so long that I could write a book
Oh,
with
wow.
600
That's
pages
huge.
on athlete branding. It's called the Athlete Brand Book. It's well, like I said, it's 600 pages. It features easy to use brand building strategies. It actually includes ChatGPT prompts that are specifically made for athletes, so they can use the power of ChatGPT even without understanding marketing strategy. And it is made to help athletes build better brands and boost their independence, their income, their influence, and their societal impact. And as you can tell, obviously, I'm super excited about the content and about the opportunities that athletes have to basically do better and take a hold of their own futures and to build brands that last beyond their
Yeah,
athletic
absolutely.
career.
Yeah.
So yeah, they have an incredible platform that they can use if only somebody would actually show them how to use it, and
Yeah.
that's what I
Yeah.
aim to do. That's what I try.
Wow. Super cool. So I'll need to put my hands on the book at some point at the next conference.
Yeah, no, I'll
And
be happy to send you. I'll be happy to send you a copy. It's called the Athlete Brand Book, and anybody can go to theathletebrandbook.com, and they'll be able to find information about the book and order it if they so want.
va bene, Thomas, it was a fascinating chat. And I am happy because the aspect of brands and athletes is possibly the weakest part of my knowledge in sports business and sports tech. So it was really fascinating conversation also for myself. I hope also for our audience. Thank
Well,
you for doing this, Thomas.
I loved it, Carlo. Thank you very much. I hope that when we look at the Olympics, we will see new athlete faces, new athlete stories climbing on the stage, celebrating their wins. And I look forward to working with you and others to actually make sure that they build a brand that their talent and hard work is deserving of.
That's a good objective for the next month. Absolutely. Grazie. Ciao.
Mille grazie, ciao Carlo, ciao.